Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Homeschool Quest Roundtable on affordable homeschooling tips. If you have had a chance to check out the magazine that we just launched, you will know that it is chock full of affordable homeschooling tips from the community. And it has articles on ways to be able to save money, has articles on how to be able to transform your homeschool using child-led learning and to be able to make it more affordable. So many different tips for you to be able to make homeschooling more possible on a budget. So today I have here with me Lauren and Kimberly. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to dive into these tips that we want to share. You may hear my dog Teddy Bear in the background here. He's just really excited to be joining us all here today. So I'm going to go ahead. I shared a link to the magazine here on the screen, and I'm going to go ahead and actually show you guys what it looks like. So it is available to be read on our website. That's the link. And you can also download your very own copy. It is mobile optimized, so you can actually download this on your phone, and it is the perfect size to be able to be read on your phone. So makes it a little bit easier to be able to read in between different stops and as you're going throughout your day. So we have article on saving money and supercharging your homeschool from Lauren from Salt and Lightspeed. It's all about focusing on your passion. I'm excited to hear a little bit more about that today. Talking about how you can homeschool on a dime, ways to be able to save money while homeschooling, the cost-saving magic of child-led learning, 10 free resources for families of struggling readers, 5 fantasy books that your kids will love, Slow and Steady Wins the Race, a super encouraging article for parents who have neurodivergent and 2E kids as a reminder that everyone learns at their own pace, and there are some exceptionally gifted kids out there. They learn all at their own pace. We also have a homeschool success story from a homeschool graduate. That one is a lot of fun to read. We have some DIY heartfelt holiday gifts that you can make with your kids so you can incorporate some learning into some of the really creative gifts that you can give to your family. Some homeschool myths that are busted. And we also have some tips for homeschooling during the holidays. So this is just the articles. That's not even to mention our famous freebie guide and all of the really amazing free and affordable products that are throughout the magazine. So, Lauren, I would love to. We were just talking before we went live about how affordable homeschooling really makes it a lot more accessible for a lot of homeschoolers to be able to dive into homeschooling. I want you to talk again a little bit about what you were talking about, the cost of traditional school versus homeschooling and kind of that sticker shock that you kind of get.
Yeah. So when I first started my homeschool journey, I got the normal, some people supported me. And some people were like, but what about socialization? Like the normal feedback you think of. But one of the most common comments I got was, oh, that's amazing. We just can't afford that. Or isn't that so expensive? And I was just thinking about it more. And, traditional school is sometimes thought of as free, and homeschooling is thought of as expensive, especially if you just look at the big box stores of, all in one, and you see how much money you have to pay for a year of schooling, and you multiply that by how many children you have. And yeah, it can be overwhelming. But traditional school is also actually has a little bit of a cost to it, and it can sneak up on you throughout the year, and it's just not advertised. So you don't enroll your child in school and they don't give you a list of, all the money it's going to take to buy backpacks and notebooks and send money with them to school so they can buy food, because you're not going to pack a lunch every single day. None of us are. And going on field trips and going on sports. And I would just say, like, homeschooling doesn't have to be an expensive option. If money is what's holding you back from starting your homeschool journey, then I think that if you factor in the actual cost over the year of a traditional school versus a homeschool, it's actually going to be a whole lot more comparable than you might have originally thought or what people think. And it can actually be a lot cheaper, in my opinion.
One thing that I really appreciate about the Homeschool Quest and all of the creators who share their resources is there's a lot of them that are actually homeschool moms, just like both of you, that are sharing resources that they've created for their kids. They're sharing affordable resources that they've created because it's their passion. And that kind of leads into the article that you shared in the magazine about sharing your passion with your kids. And Kimberly, you were just talking a little bit about that. Do you want to share a little before we got started? Share a little bit more about what you were talking about it being about the passion and making that affordable for the community.
Well, yeah, we were talking about how I think a lot of us as homeschool moms look around, and I think we're just in a really supportive environment homeschooling. I'm sure that moms who public school have the same drive to find, those things that they're passionate about, but they, we're in a world where we're encouraged to be child-led. And so if our kids are interested in something and we can't find that resource, then we're encouraged to, we're in a very supportive little homeschooling microcosm where everybody's like, okay, well, let's make that, and so it's really not hard to find that information to dive in and figure out how to make it. And then we think, well, if I couldn't find this and my kiddo wanted it, there's likely another mom out there or another parent who's looking for this resource. And so one of the things that I feel very blessed in the homeschool community is that most of the creators who are homeschool moms tend to share those at a very economical rate. Whether, as I was talking about, my daughter being able to take violin lessons from at a fraction of the cost, or there's a lot of times there's homeschooling days at the zoo, there's homeschooling days at the science museum. It's not just limited to the homeschool moms, but I think that as the homeschool movement is becoming more mainstream, we're seeing more and more affordable options, because a lot of people realize most of the time as a homeschooling parent, we've made choices in our finances, and we're stretched a little bit thin, or not stretched thin, but we're more intentional with our budget, I should say. Like you were saying, Lauren, like we're more aware of what we're spending, right? And so there's a lot of awareness around that, and there's a lot of options where people just have the heart to share and they want to make it affordable. So you can find all these amazing resources at really a much more economical price than if you were trying to go enroll your kiddo in like dance. We have a co-op that offers dance for $10 a month instead of formal dance classes. So things like that, the extracurriculars that you were mentioning earlier. I think you, like you said, Amelia, you get to do this really well-rounded education at a much more affordable rate. Even if you went to public school and those costs snuck up on you, you wouldn't necessarily be able to afford all of those arts and musics and dance and field trips and such. But now it kind of gets all bundled into one big educational experience, and it's pretty amazing when you start to look at how much you can offer your kids for less than I think that you could in the public school world.
So I want you to tell the story that you did, Lauren, in the magazine about your passion and how it has fueled Salt and Lightspeed. So I really loved that story that you shared.
Oh, great. I love sharing it, and I love permission to do so. This is great. When I was a kid, I used to spend my summers going to Montana and sitting in my grandpa's garage with him. He used to be an engineer, and he just loved sitting in his garage. And from him, even when I was 6, I learned how to solder. I learned about circuits. I learned about the process of inventing. I don't know if he wanted me there, but I was there. And he's my grandpa, so he had to let me. But I actually, from that was probably one of the most influential parts of my childhood. And because of that, I went on to become an engineer myself. I studied electrical engineering and computer engineering, and I ended up going and working for the same company that he worked for.
That's so cool.
Yeah, Oh man. But he didn't spend any money to inspire me and to educate me to be the biggest influence in my educational career. He didn't spend a dime. He just spent time with me. Um, and my mom also, she's a fine artist. She's an amazing artist. And, now I never considered myself a great artist, but I still don't. I have a lot to learn, but it's now become actually one of the cornerstones of my small business is art. And so, her inspiration and my grandpa spending all that time with me, again, was just one of the most sharing their passion with me was one of the most infectious parts of me growing up. And again, they had the greatest influence and didn't spend a cent. And so I wanted to kind of take that as I'm starting my own homeschool journey with my kids. It's like, how can I inspire the same passion in their schooling that my mom and my grandpa inspired in me? And that doesn't necessarily mean I want them to do the same things that I do or love the same things I love, but just show passion, to them, show passion for learning, passion for, excelling at something, for dedicating your life to something. And whether they go in the same direction I'm going or in a different direction, they'll have at least seen that. And they'll have the tools for how to learn. And so I actually think there's a lot of benefits to infusing, your own passions as a parent. Of course, finding a time to honor your children's passions is so great. And I try and do that as well. But making a little space for your own passions as a parent has a couple really big benefits. The first one, again, is modeling the love of learning. That's more important than any one subject, no matter what subject it is, I think. Modeling the love of learning for them. Show them that you're passionate. I've tried to make myself passionate about essay writing. I am not a writer, so it's really hard to seem passionate. I tape on the smile, and it's like, let's write essays, guys. It's just hard for me because I'm personally not passionate about it. It's really, really easy to just exude passion and excitement when it's something you want to do anyway. Learning together, you bond with your kid because you're doing something together. And I that's my strongest memory of my grandpa, and I'll always carry that with me, those moments. They get, and this is where the cost saving tips come in. You're probably an expert at something, and it's probably the thing you're passionate about. If you're not, you go back to the learning together. That's great. But if you are an expert at something, which I think everyone is, whether it's chemistry or crochet, you're an expert at something, and your child has access to that for free. How much do you have to pay for, an expert to come in and one-on-one teach your child something? Through the roof price, I can't afford that, but I can share my expertise with my kid for free. And that's awesome. The other thing is you already have, or you want it anyway, everything that you would need to share that passion with your kid. So my daughter expressed an interest in Photoshop, something I'm learning right now. And I already had the software, and I already had a course. So she is learning about Photoshop for free. I didn't have to buy anything else. Other than watercolor paper, I don't have to buy anything to share my passion for art with them. And electronics, we just started that. I had to buy some resistors and things like that, but I wanted them anyway. So 2 birds with 1 stone, and I can call it school. And that's great. And that I don't want to sell short networking. You've spent your entire life, or however long you've had that hobby, forming a network of people, whether you like rock collecting and you're on a Facebook group, or you go to a weekly meetup of crocheters. I keep coming back to crochet. But an example of this would be, my son is like, what are robots? He's 6. So it wasn't like a super in-depth technical question, but I was able to reach out to so I went to Vanderbilt, the Vanderbilt robotics team, and just ask, hey, can my son write you a letter asking about robotics? And they're like, yeah, because I used to go there. They were so happy to have, I think they would have been happy anyway, but I had thought of it because I'd been there. And they were so happy. So my son actually snail mailed a letter to the Vanderbilt robotics team, and they hand wrote him a letter back answering his questions about robotics. And that was huge for my son. And so I just don't sell short what you already have to offer, your own expertise, your own networks, the groups you're involved in. It doesn't have to be like, I have a passion for graph theory. It's like, who does? But you're an expert. Everyone is an expert at something, and everyone can share that with their kids. And I think there's so many benefits to that. If you don't know where to start, I would say just go for it. So you don't need to know where to start or overthink it very much. But the passion I have that I shared with my kids is coding. And I have a lot of fun working with them about that. But the passion I have sharing with my kids about coding, actually, I ended up tying it all into printables, polishing it up, making printables that I share with the homeschooling community. So if you want to piggyback off of my passions while you get your own affairs in order, included in the magazine, the winter edition of the magazine, you have How Computers Think. It's for younger kids. So this isn't really for high school kids, but elementary kids, middle school kids, maybe. You can maybe learn together. Maybe you can both. If you ever wanted to think about coding, you can, model the love of learning, learn together, and become an expert yourself if you want to. But this is about screen-free coding. If that's an interest to you, you get to make little airplanes, which I have fun playing with. I don't even share this with my kids. But yeah, so that's all I have to say about sharing your own, making space in your school for yourself and your passions, and sharing those with your kids.
Thank you for sharing that, Lauren. Melissa was just sharing in the comments that she's teaching her kids how to use Canva for video editing and design, which is something that she has access to. And I was sharing that I totally agree about lifelong love of learning being so important for homeschool. This year, I'm actually, funny enough, learning knitting and crocheting from my mom. So it's being able to share those passions is something that I 100% agree with.
There you go.
So, Kimberly, I wanted to know more about your tips for making homeschooling more affordable. What are you doing with your homeschool, and how are you making it more affordable for you?
Well, I will say that that's evolved a little bit. I'm sure Lauren might say the same thing. Like what all of us, we set out with this intention, right? When we decide we're going to homeschool, and then like what I homeschool now, like several years later, doesn't look exactly like it did back then. And I think it's about, for me now, the way I approached this year to make it the most affordable is I set out a budget ahead of time. And I think that's something that we don't always do a very good job of. We think we have to homeschool, and we just have this kind of like vague idea. But then what happens for me personally is that I look at something like my daughter loves science. I mentioned that. And so we were looking for a science curriculum. I kept going, oh, those are really expensive. Well, then I went back to the drawing board, looked at my budget, and figured out where I could, work with the library, get books from the library and use maybe a less expensive math program or, something of that nature, so that I could work that into really enrich her life, because that is her focus right now. And I also customize. So this is my big tip: customize your curriculums. If you do have something special, don't be afraid to follow that like one passion that is maybe at first glance looks a little bit more, but there's always a customization button on those. So for example, we use Sunlight Science because they put together all of the experiments into one box, so you don't have to go find like one ping pong ball and like two clothespins, which I might have laying around the house, but I'm by the time I gather them up, heaven knows it'll be next week. So we do that, but at first glance, the science, I'm like, whew, that's hefty. But you can customize it, so you can only get we only get the experiment book and the box and the guide, and then we get everything else from the library. And we're fortunate to live in North Texas, where all of the libraries, we get a card that would work at any of the libraries, so we can go we can go almost anywhere. And then there's a website called World Cat, I think it is, and so you can type in the name of a book, and it'll show you what libraries have it. So we just
Really?
plan ahead that way. So we customize our curriculum. So that one's been big for us.
Okay,
And
I'm finding this website because that sounds amazing.
right, I happened on it by accident. I was like, oh, this is glorious. And especially since where we live, we're a little suburb, and so there's like 16 suburbs around us that all have their own like library systems on top of like the main Fort Worth library system that has like 9 branches. So we have like we are fortunate. We're very, very fortunate in our library resources, and not everybody has that if they live a little bit more rurally. But we also we ask for those for gifts. Like my daughter, she's old enough, she's in 3rd grade, where it's not her only gift necessarily throughout the year. Like I don't make her, give up on her, like no dolls for you. But it's something where we do talk about it, where I'm like, help me rank what's really important to you. And then like a gift for me, we have like our grandmas and aunts and uncles, they all pitch in to get us like a science museum membership. So we ask for those. And then on those sites, a lot of times you will find there's a lot of worksheets and activities that you can get when you go to those. So you go look and find it and have, your field trip activity. If somebody's gifted you the membership and you get the, the guide from the site, from the museum, then it's really free at that point, and a lot of them have homeschool days. A lot of the stores have homeschool days, or they have educator discounts. And as a homeschooling parent, a lot of times you can get those discounts as well. So look into, before I buy anything, before I buy a membership, before I go anywhere, I always look for homeschool discounts. I Google homeschool discounts or educator discounts. They won't necessarily separate it out, and look at the restrictions. And a lot of times they'll specify like homeschoolers are welcome to apply, or if they don't specify that it's not, then I will submit for it. What's the worst they can say? No, but I would say like 95% of the time they say yes. So I would say just trying to think outside of the box, but setting a budget beforehand has been huge for us. Knowing what we're going to spend, being intentional about how we're going to spend it. And then it makes me more comfortable working within that budget. And also like kind of like what Lauren was touching on earlier, deciding what I'm working in my homeschool budget. So for instance, if we were going to public school, we would classify like school clothes as part of our school budget, right? Well, we don't have to spend that now. I mean, we do have to have something that's not pajamas at times, but for the most part, we don't need to spend this big bundle of money on school clothes at the beginning of the year, right? We kind of buy those throughout the year, and we do different things. So instead, we can move that budget back into our homeschooling, like our curriculum budget or our extra extra things, whether it's like different, like I said, science activities or art supplies. And then also working within your homeschool groups. A lot of times if you just ask, there's a lot of groups. If there's like the Sunlight Buy and Sell online, but there's Facebook groups for almost anything that you could want, whether it's math, whether it's Bookshark, whatever curriculum or resource you're looking for. The homeschool community is really exceptional about where we try to be frugal, right? And so a lot of like, we are not writing in our main book and we will resell it next year. And so what we are going to have to invest in a new curriculum is going to be a fraction of what we would if we were just purchasing it ahead of time. So kind of rolling that budget over into the next year every year has been really helpful as well.
So some tips that we got from the community that you can find in our magazine includes using the library for printing was a big one that a lot of people mentioned. They said that it makes them a lot more intentional about what they're printing, because if they have to leave the house to print, they tend to actually print less and spend more time focusing on which ones they want to use. With that in mind, Kim Brothers mentioned that she actually uses a couple different thumb drives to store and then categorize their plans. She actually puts like different folders for different time periods. So She knows when she's going to town or to the library, she has, okay, these are the printables that I need to print for this next month for math and science. She buys her read alouds from used bookstores, whether that's online or locally. And again, using the library for movies and documentaries, especially if you can get like an online membership. A lot of libraries include subscriptions to places where you can watch documentaries for free that are usually fairly expensive to rent, or are only available on specific websites. Hands-on field trips to like historical sites using printables that you can find online to add, kind of be your tour guide. And a lot of colleges often offer free classical music concerts and sometimes even free plays. Uh, she said that, like you were saying, Kimberly, the key to cheap and or free education is to plan and follow through in order to get the best results. Co-ops, even though they do have some fees, are a great way to be able to fill in the gaps. And creating your own curriculum for areas that may be a little more expensive or not available is a great way to be able to save money.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, piggybacking on that, one thing that we found, mentioning the free like music concerts that you were mentioning, the classical musics, we are part of, depending on where you live, if you look for the Facebook groups for that are like the field trip groups for your areas, a lot of times they'll put together, so like we have a big kids theater in downtown Fort Worth, and they'll put together school trip or like a field trip. And so we can go for like, I think it's like $5 a ticket, whereas normal ticket prices are like almost $30. And so if you can find those resources around you, or even plan ahead. So if you have to drive a couple hours to a city, but maybe you go in there once a quarter and kind of do some of those bigger activities. But then you can get those resources at a fraction, because we're coming with like a big, the big homeschooling like power,
I think that one of my favorite field trip memories is when we went with Homeschool Co-op to the King Tut exhibit in Seattle.
Nice.
And so you had a couple options. We could just go and see the exhibit, or you could get a day pass where you got to go to like botanical gardens and like a bunch of other really cool places. So we just decided to spend, because we were in Seattle that day, so we just decided to spend the whole day. So we did the King Tut exhibit, we went to a butterfly garden, and it was just one of the most magical field trips that I had ever been on. And we actually ended up saving money because the group discount for the day pass was actually less expensive than just going to the King Tut exhibit. So asking, when you have a large group, asking for that group discount, most people are going to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually been to that exhibit in Seattle. Fantastic. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I would also be creative about where you look for field trips. The other day, we went to the wastewater treatment plant. Maybe not the flashiest sounding place, but the kids learned chemistry. They saw how computers were used in maintaining all these pumps. They learned about mechanics and biology, why they actually put like positive microbes in there that help like reduce the contamination of the water, how they mechanically separate things. I'm not going to go into detail, but they got to do like look through microscopes and everything, and it was free. And we weren't even a big group. It was just me and one other family. And it was really cool. And they were so happy to give, it's not every day you get families be like, please show us about wastewater treatment. And they were so happy to show us, and the other thing I'd like to add is, even field trips aside, as far as what you spend your money on as a homeschool parent versus a parent who's sending your kid to a traditional school, every dollar you spend as a homeschool parent is going towards something that will benefit your child and that they will love.
Yes.
Spending $1 as a homeschool parent is a very different thing than spending $1 as a traditional school parent. You might have to be buying something that you didn't want in the first place and your kid hates anyway. I think our dollars are so much more impactful in the educational experience of our children as homeschool parents. And that just struck me as I was listening to you talk about, negotiating your child's education and save money here and there. also the thing that popped into my head was the time that a friend of mine who was organizing a science craft asked me to find 30 toilet paper rolls and bring them. And I'm like, so you talking about sunlight and how it gives you just the one ping pong, it gives you what you need. It really struck a chord with me because there were just piles of toilet paper around my house because I'm like taking out all these toilet paper rolls. And so I really resonated with that point that you made.
And I think we have to remember that we have two budgets too, as moms in general, but as homeschool moms, where we have our financial budget and our time budget. And so you weigh those against each other. If it's going to save you money, it often means it might take you a little bit more time. And that's okay. But, being realistic about that so you don't feel burdened down the road. Or there are going to be times like for me, because I work full time from home, so that collecting all of those various things, and science isn't my passion, so I tend to say, yeah, I'm going to do that, never get to it. So for me, that is something I invest in because it's a passion for my daughter. But I wouldn't go around collecting all those things, but and so I think it's kind of being mindful that, you have to spend a little bit more time sometimes to save a little bit of money, or you spend a little bit more to have that time to invest in something else, and that's okay. But being intentional with where you spend your budget helps keep it really affordable.
Well, and like some of the tips that I see here in the magazine, I mean, one of the people said that like more than just putting page protectors on curriculum to resell it, they also put those sheet protectors on workbook pages and other worksheets so that they can pass them down to the next kid and the next sibling as well. So there's ways that when you're investing in a really good resource, you're able to use it for multiple kids, and that makes a big difference in being able to make it more affordable. So you can afford to invest in something that you're going to use for several years, or if you find that it only works for one kid, then you can be able to sell that to someone else. And I think what's really cool about the homeschool community is so many of the people who are creating these resources and workbooks are homeschool moms too. And so that you're not only helping to be able to enrich your child's education, but you're also helping someone else to make their homeschool more affordable. So I think that is super cool.
I am so sorry. I have to pop off of here and go get my daughter from her science class that she's at today. But I really enjoyed chatting with both of you. So thank you very much. It was lovely to chat, Lauren, and nice to see you again, Amelia.
I look forward to seeing you again this December for your art class.
Yes, that'll be fun. All right, have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
So Kara Bailey mentioned that there are a lot of free activities that can be arranged by your community. So this can be usually during school, usually it's during school holidays. So always look at the city council pages and things like that to see what free events are being offered, because there's oftentimes different opportunities that you might be able to find. Libraries oftentimes offer free tickets to things. I just recently went to my library, and they had a free day pass for the local state parks as a part of their initiative to get people to be outside and having fun during the summer. So when you do drop by, ask about any opportunities that they may have available, because they're always partnering with different local businesses and museums to be able to offer opportunities to further people's education. There are a bunch of different opportunities like Project Gutenberg or WorldCat, like Kimberly mentioned, that have a lot of resources to be able to find books online for free, especially classic books. A lot of those are actually available online as ebooks that you can download for free, so that you can be able to add some really good books to your language arts curriculum. There's websites like Google Books, National Archive Online Library, and LibriVox for free audiobooks. So there's a whole lot of resources out there for you to be able to add a bunch of free or affordable resources to your curriculum. I highly recommend that you guys go and check out the magazine. It has a bunch more tips from our community and great articles from our guest authors. I would love to see if you can count how many foxes are included in the magazine, because we actually went ahead and included a ton of little hidden fox illustrations throughout the entire magazine. So I'd love to see if you guys can count them all and who gets closest to the true answer.
You know what my kids are doing later then?
And Melissa Murr also wanted to say that she also saves on vacations because she can take trips during off-peak times of the year when it might be when kids usually would be in school. She can be able to plan her vacations around her schedule and be able to save on that as well. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I really appreciate, Lauren, for you hopping on here and sharing your tips for making homeschool more affordable. This has been a whole lot of fun.
Of course, happy to be here.
And thank you everyone for joining us for this roundtable. The next roundtable that we will be having is going to be, let me pull up my schedule here. It's going to be on the 30th, and we're going to be talking about supplementing your homeschool. So I'm going to go ahead and drop a link to that in the comments so you guys can RSVP to our next roundtable. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye.